Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a plate full of insights. My name's Laura, and I'm going to be your host for today. Andrea and Brandon and Matthew all trusted me with doing the hosting for this episode, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, they don't regret it. But I'm very excited for today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking with one of our registered dietitians, Kelsey, and one of our chefs, Lisa. So, hello, you guys. Thanks you for joining.
Hi. You're doing great so far, Laura, by the way.
Thank you.
Agreed.
We're not regretting it so far. Good, good. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about some no fridge, no fuss kind of meal prepping tips, smart snacking, and life on the go. Right now, when we're recording this, we are in the summer months, so it's definitely a relevant time to be chatting about this, but something that I feel can be applicable throughout the whole year. Everybody has a busy life at different points, and maybe we don't have access to a fridge ever. So, we're going to be chatting about how to work around that and make things work for you, basically. So, to get a roll on things, I basically just want to introduce that topic a little bit. So, um, whether we're traveling during the summer, like we're in hotels, we're going on road trips, maybe even camping or something like that, but trying to figure out how to not live on chips and maybe gas station sandwiches, which have their time and place, maybe, but not all the time. I feel like I would get pretty sick of that. What would eating well without a kitchen actually look like? And is it easier than you might think? Um, so, to kind of get into that, I guess I want to touch on maybe what you guys have experience with. Do you guys go for some no fridge meals often, or do you have any sort of uh, quick tips or categories that you want to cover first of all?
Um, yeah, I think it happens more often than you think. I mean, we travel to BC quite a bit, so that's a 16-hour road trip for us. We usually break it up over 2 days. But we also try and like only drive 2 to 3 hours at a time and then stop for like a hike and a snack or something like that. So you do have to get a little bit more creative with it. Or the other thing that I see a lot is like with the summer, we have longer work days. So a lot of my clients that are doing like manual labor or construction, or they're traveling out of town, or I work with a couple like forest firefighters. You got long periods of time where you may not have access. So I think when it comes to those kind of things, it's that taking that 5 minutes to plan, as hard as that may seem, and I think that's the piece that helps us to be more successful, is if we have 5 minutes to plan and stock our environment, then when we're in those situations where we don't necessarily have a fridge, we can create some form of balance, right? And I think when it kind of comes down to like what that balance looks like for every person, it's going to change for person to person, and it might change situation to situation. But it's taking a moment to pause and kind of acknowledge what foods make me feel full and satisfied, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love chips, especially like the crunchy, salty ones. Like, that is so enjoyable. But I've come to realize like they're not overly satisfying. Like, even when you eat quite a bit, like, I don't feel full and satisfied. And when you're used to eating that way, you start to crave it a little bit. So, that being said, like, when I grab a gas station snack, I might, yes, grab a bag of chips if that's what my body's craving. But then I might find something that's got a little bit of fiber in it, like maybe a piece of fruit, or some roasted nuts or chickpeas or beans or lentils or something like that. And then maybe something with a little bit of protein to pair with those chips, right? So kind of thinking about more combinations versus individual foods. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And yeah, I love that strategy of pairing kind of what you might have that's quick and grab and go, or what you might be sort of craving, enjoying that treat that you can grab at the gas station. But those things that you can anticipate there won't be plenty of at a gas station, maybe that's where the prep comes in or the planning to add that on and round out a good old snack. So I love that. Thank you, Kelsey. Lisa, did you have any kind of like smart snacking tips or anything that you like to go for if you're ever traveling or out and about?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what Kelsey said. Is a lot about planning in advance whenever you can, and focusing on like the planning aspect and not perfection, because you have to be flexible when you're not home, whether you're traveling or, busy at work or you're just away from home. Like you really just have to get in that mindset of like, this is not going to always look perfect every day, and that's okay. So that's kind of the first like mindset to get in before anything. But yeah, the planning piece. And I mean, if you have a period of time where you're home first before going somewhere, there's, lots of pre-prep you can do to bring stuff with you. And like, even if you don't have a fridge, sometimes you could have a pseudo fridge in the form of a camping cooler or some kind of makeshift thing like that. So there are ways around certain things, but go-tos, I mean, the gas stations are surprisingly, there's actually a lot of things there that you wouldn't think are good options, like, or you wouldn't think that gas stations have good options, but when you actually look, they have like beef jerky is a great one, that has a great source of protein. It is higher in sodium, but I mean that also is what keeps it from spoiling, right? Lots of the time you can find trail mix or nuts, things like that there, even hard boiled eggs sometimes in the fridge. So there's lots of little goodies at different gas stations along the way that, surprisingly, like you think of the like chips and candy as like the only thing that they're going to have, but when you actually take a bit longer to like browse through, if there's an aisle or two, there's often a lot more than you think.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think it was just a couple weeks ago, I was like walking around one just to see, and like there's boiled eggs, there's little veggie cups, there's hummus cups, like there's so much more now available because they are trying to meet the needs, right?
Those like sausage packages with the little crackers, or like the individual cans of tuna and like that you can snack on, stuff like that. Yeah, all of those things are great options.
Yeah. And sometimes we forget too, like as much as it's quick to run into a gas station, sometimes stopping at like a Dollar Tree can be a great option as well in a lower price point, right? So especially if you're wanting to kind of grab a couple things for a little bit, that can make, a big difference too. And like Lisa said, like having a cooler in your car is always really helpful. I know like when we go on long road trips, I always try and freeze a couple bottles of water beforehand. And then that way it's like it's multi-purpose, right? I've got something to drink later, but something to keep my snacks cold now.
Oh, that's so smart. And I love ice cold water. So like it's something I would look forward to just wait for it to melt.
Well, and then like I find like your stuff still gets a little bit wet, but not the same as if you're relying on like a block of ice or something like that. Or sometimes like then I end up at the end of a road trip a bunch of like freezer packs that are now warm and I can't refreeze for a while. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome tips. And you're so right, actually. Some of the gas station options are pretty interesting. Like the long drives that I usually make are from Edmonton to Medicine Hat because that's where I'm from. There's a gas station on the back road that we take. I think it's Cactus Corner, but basically they have like some local options too. Like they're really good about including like local bakery options, or even like their sandwiches are from somewhere between Edmonton and Medicine Hat. I forget where, but it's really cool. And I even saw they had a cool roasted. I think it was a type of bean, which Kelsey, me and you, I know we love our roasted bean snacks. So I was really excited about that because it's a great source of fiber to keep you nice and full and satiated as well, which can sometimes be lacking and very, very handy if you're traveling as well. So
And a lot of the roasted beans are like Canadian and local, which is kind of cool too.
yes, we do grow a lot of pulses and legumes here in Alberta. So
Yeah. You know what, though, Lori, you make such a good point because I forget about this because my parents live in Invermere, BC. So for us, it's like an 8 hour drive. So we have to plan a stop in there. And recently, we tend to stop in Canmore at a grocery store because a lot of grocery stores now have like areas you can eat in. And then we also like it's fun for our kids. They get to kind of pick out what they want. My husband and I can kind of pick out what we need. Like it's kind of a nice break and a little less overwhelming, I find, than trying to go to a restaurant, trying to figure out what everyone wants. Like there's just a little bit of freedom and autonomy there that we're teaching our kids as well. But building it in a way where like we can use clean bathrooms, we can wash our hands before we eat, we can, pick out some different options too. So I find also, like, to your point, pre-planning that trip and seeing, okay, where can I actually stop along the way and pick up some of these things as well. Because I mean, like, I don't know if you've noticed though, as much as I love the gas station, the price is like quadruple what it would be, it feels like, in the store.
Absolutely. If you have the option to go to a bigger area with more options and not the only place on Cactus Corner in the middle of nowhere. Yes. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm curious too, like when you go to the grocery store, do you guys have like a nice formula for like grabbing a snack? Are you guys normally going for a meal or just a snack when you stop? What does that kind of look like?
I don't necessarily have a formula, but I'm a big fan of like kind of making charcuterie basically. So, grabbing all these different items is kind of fun. Like especially if you have a family or if you're with other people to kind of like get everyone to choose one thing kind of thing and then sort of make a bit of a feast so you can choose like nuts and seeds and meats and cheeses and fruits and stuff, and all this stuff is like relatively shelf stable, so you can kind of like just nibble at it as you go, and everyone can kind of like eat as much or as little as they need, to until they're full and satisfied. So it's just fun. Like you get to have little bites of different things, different textures, different flavors, and it like is surprisingly filling too. So and there's a lot of little like just already portable things like little mini cucumbers or cherry tomatoes or like little mini peppers, and those things at the grocery store you can just grab, and then that can be part of your little charcuterie plate. And that's just such a crowd pleaser. Like I feel like everybody, I don't know what it is about charcuterie and that kind of thing. It's like people just have more fun with it, it feels like. And you can pick up like a jar or a container of hummus and have like dips and stuff. It's like there's so many possibilities, and no two times are going to be the same. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I just, that's kind of my go-to when I want to something. And you don't really have to prepare anything, it's like ready to go for you. You don't have to chop, you don't have to cook, you don't have to do anything. It's just like buying ingredients and eating them. So that's like, I would say my what I gravitate to the most, but there's lots of different things you could do for sure.
Yeah, and I
That
think
sounds
it's
so
always
good.
important to kind of like take that moment and check in of like, what is this eating experience going to be for me? Right? Like, is it a road trip or just enjoying it? And I want to have, maybe a certain type of food that I'm kind of craving, right? Or, like in our life, are we on our way to a race, like a trail race or something? Like, so I have to be a little bit more cautious about what I might be choosing as well. Right. So I think it kind of depends on like what your goal of the eating experience is. Like, is it just to enjoy, or are you potentially eating with maybe some health goals in mind? Right. Because then if you have your purpose, then it helps you to kind of pick choices that align with that. Right. And I find like my formula with more because I've got young kids is like something fun and then something that's going to help you to keep be full and satisfied. Right. And so, like in my car, we have an emergency snack bin that I have, that I kind of have it stocked with some different things so that we can build what we need, if that makes sense, but then still include the things that we want. So, because it's super fun for like your kids when you stop for them to go pick out something from the gas station. Right.
I think this can apply to adults too, by the way. It doesn't this sounds fun.
It's fun for me too. I tend to get overwhelmed, like too many options, right? But I have like some samples from what I might keep in my snack bin, that I can kind of describe. Do you want me to share them now?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds so fun.
So this is like a different version that lives in my car. So I just have like a container that lives under the front seat of my of like the passenger side that I fill up with stuff. That being said, if you do have young kids or potentially a husband that gets bored while driving, change up your location of it. otherwise, otherwise you'll get in for your road trip and it'll be empty. But I usually try. So I do a couple different things. I try and have some protein options that I can use to kind of round out. So like Lisa mentioned, the like flavored canned tuna are good options, or even snack packs. If you're not a tuna fan, they even have like chicken salad, which is a really good option. So that's the French side. Just Lisa here could read it, I think. Yeah, Lisa also speaks French in case you guys missed that. I also just found like some individual packs of nut butter because I love apple and peanut butter as a snack. And these ones, yeah, these Barney brand are from Superstore, but they're made in a peanut-free facility. So especially if you're okay with almond butter but not okay with peanuts, that's kind of a nice option too. Or I really love individual bags of jerky because again, like you can kind of round out that way. And then I love different variations of beans. So Costco now has like the three farmers in individual bags, which is really good because these are nice. They're like protein and carb. And to be honest, like if I wanted to build a balanced lunch, a lot of my clients know I kind of always travel with some form of veggie tray. And so to Lisa's point, getting vegetables that you don't need to cut is going to help them to last longer and they don't have to be refrigerated, which is really nice. And if they don't get eaten, there's no shame because they just can go on to the next day or something like that as well. So like if I needed a balanced meal that's got like 30 grams of protein and 10 grams of fiber, I could easily do like beef jerky, some roasted beans, and some veggies, and then adding something like a that's it bar or a piece of fruit too. Right, so there's kind of some different variations, which is really nice to be able to build some balance in that way. So yeah, in my box I always have some protein options and then some mixed options, which would be like roasted beans and stuff like that, or like the RX granola bars are good options there too for kind of that mixed option. And then I might have some different squeeze pouches, or again, some like easy to digest carbohydrates because we often are like on our way to sports or practice or something like that. So that's always kind of a nice option too. If you're wanting a way to get some vegetables in, the squeeze pouches, if you walk down the baby food aisle, you can also get some vegetable options too, if you want to, but you don't have to. That might be like next level. But it's a smoothie, yeah. And actually, a lot of my clients with GI issues, because that smoothie is so important to them, that's one of our travel strategies for them, is that we are bringing stuff that's already pureed that they can quickly just like mix and shake, or they can put in like a more cost-effective blender that's easy to travel with, right? And so, like to Lisa's point that she made earlier, it's nice if you have the plan to do this, but it's also okay to just like run in a grocery store and grab some of this stuff and fill it up. Right. And so starting to kind of know like, okay, if I go into Costco, I can get these things and that'll get us through. Right. Or knowing like, okay, if I go to the Dollar Tree, I can get these things and that'll help get us through. So creating that backup plan, or my favorite is always I have like basically a rolling click and collect order that I can order some of these stuff for. Right. Yeah, so and it's a nice way to kind of add some fun into your routine, but then that way you can still have what you want when you're traveling, but add what you need to feel full and satisfied so that you get to your destination feeling good and not like I need to take a nap or use the washroom.
Yeah, traveling, I feel like for some people definitely causes some symptoms in the GI area for sure. So as much as we can sort of replicate, what is a balanced meal that I typically have at home that we can carry through on to the travel days, that can be super, super handy. And yeah, I love that, Kelsey. You kind of touched on too, where yeah, we can build snacks on the go if we need it. We can plan them if we like, grab that veggie tray and all of that stuff. And that can even extend into a meal, right? So it doesn't have to just be snacks that we're going for on your travels, or if we don't have a kitchen accessible to us, we can sort of just add a couple more things and make it into a meal. So maybe we can chat a little bit more about that too. Like, do you ever have any different strategies for meal prep without a kitchen instead of just snacks, kind of other things that we can do that makes it easier on us?
Yeah, I definitely have some strategies for that. Again, it's kind of a tricky one because that does come in with a little bit more pre-planning, which is the tricky bit. And I think part of the reason why I like that emergency snack bin is I can do it a couple weeks ahead of when we go and just kind of make sure it's stocked before we go. But because I find like the morning you leave, I have all the best intentions of being like well organized and planned, and then it just feels like get in the car. You're just throwing stuff in. You don't even know where anything is. Yeah. Right. So, and I'm sure Lisa probably has so many more ideas, but I think because naturally camping is jumping up in my head. So, like a couple things that I do if I'm not obviously bringing a fridge, because we tent. So, we also have to make good use of our cooler space. I often pre marinate and freeze a lot of my meat. So, then again, like I'm doing that a couple weeks ahead of time. But then again, I'm not having to bring all of those ingredients with me. It's already done and it acts as a giant freezer pack. So yeah, so those things do, or like I said, like for when we go camping, I always have mini veggie trays. I do kind of one for each day, or if we're going for a week, I do kind of three with the intention of stocking, like refilling it or stocking up. But it kind of like at lunchtime, it comes out on our table and it just lives out there for the rest of the day just to make it easy access. I do enjoy salads with my meals, so I do tend to do more like mason jar salads again because it just saves cooler space. So instead of bringing all of these ingredients, I can pack like pretty much 3 to 4 days of food within one cooler to kind of get through the week and not have to bring like all the extra condiments and spices and stuff like that. Just more your staples, like your mustard and your ketchup.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's all really awesome. And I like how that extends to camping too. It's such like a common thing during the summer months. So, um, major tip there is a nice cooler and a nice sort of space saving technique. Like you said, Kelsey, if you can use some of those marinated meats that are frozen as an ice pack for a little bit and then kind of use it throughout the days, that's awesome. So I really like that idea. Um, Lisa, me and you were just chatting about how you haven't gone camping in a while, so maybe that wouldn't apply too much. But do you have any kind of like no fridge sort of tips for making meals or um, for some of the clients that I see a lot dealing with shift work or traveling for work where we don't necessarily have a kitchen to prep some meals? Do you have any kind of go-tos that you look at there?
I mean, there's a lot of things that don't require refrigeration or heating. So, like all of your dried goods like breads, crackers,
Mhm.
nuts, seeds, nut butters, all those things. So you can, I mean, we already kind of talked about stocking up on some of these things, whether it's for camping or for a trip or even just like, as Kelsey was talking about that bin, I was like, I feel like that would just be good to have in your car all the time. Like maybe not the
Hmm.
fresh fruits and vegetables, but all those other things, because like you just never know what situation you're going to find yourself in if you're like have a long day out and you're just not going to be home, or you have like you're running around with your kids to different activities. Like it's just good to have that like ready to go for different situations, and of course for traveling too. So that's sort of deviating from your question, but I just wanted to add on to that. Yeah, so all those things and like those, yeah, those easy to prep veggies and stuff that don't require any like you don't really have to chop them. I already mentioned stuff like that, like the cherry tomatoes, little baby peppers, baby cucumbers. Dried fruit is a good one. You can do lots with that. Canned beans and stuff. I mean, I guess you have to drain those, so you have to have a way to do that, but there's ways to do that too. Oatmeal packages, you don't, I mean, I guess if you have a kettle, then you could do that, or you could boil water like over a campfire, or you could even do cold water and just let it sit for a little longer to absorb.
True.
Um, yeah, overnight oats, exactly. The salad thing I really like too, because you can actually, I mean, as a little like shortcut, there are the like pre-made salads. They're a little bit more expensive, but if you're looking for the kind of balance between convenience and getting a bit of veggies and nutrition, you can get like the bagged salads that like often come with the dressing included and have like the little toppings you can add in there, and then just add some kind of protein to it. So you could add like beans or some kind of cheese or even like lunch meats or whatever it may be, or nuts, any of those things to just kind of like add to it and sort of make that into a meal. So you can get really creative with that kind of a thing. I also really like making bean salads. So again, you have to figure out a way to drain the beans. That's pretty much the hardest part of the thing. But beyond that, like, you can mix it with your any of those veggies that I mentioned. You can add in feta cheese. All you have to get is like some vinegar and olive oil and have that ready to go. They're shelf stable. Dried herbs or fresh herbs, whatever you have, toss it all together and kind of like let it marinate. So those, like, you don't really require, I guess you would require a cooler to keep it after if you weren't going to eat it right away. But yeah, and I wanted to also echo Kelsey's tip around freezing some of your food if you are going to have a cooler. I do that. I haven't been camping in a long time, but that was the one thing that I did remember about camping was that I always used to do a big batch of chili before I would leave and then freeze it in containers. And that would be the thing that I would freeze. And then you just put it in a pot and it would be just thawed enough that it wouldn't be like a total block. And you could just heat it up. Same with like pasta sauce. You could do like a bolognese sauce or like a lentil bolognese or something and freeze that, and then you have like a good portion of your meal done. So I know it was already touched on, but I also echo that you want to maximize your space as much as you can, and freezing stuff always helps with that. But yeah, sorry, I'm deviating from the question around not having.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the thing is understanding that there's not one right way to do it, right? And I understand that every road trip you go on, you get a little better every time as long as you take time to kind of reflect and like, okay, what worked, what didn't work. And sometimes you need to have experiences that go so horribly because then you learn, right? And that's like, and that's the thing. And part of it is like I find um especially being a dietitian, we have all these great plans sometimes. And then when you go camping, it's not relaxing because you're just like preparing food for everybody. So like there's definitely some things that I do now that carry on to our road trips that make it easier. Like I almost always offer to make dinner the night we arrive at my parents' house because I can pull some marinated meat from my freezer. It keeps our food cold. And then when we show up, it's to Lisa's point, it's thawed, we're ready, we can cook it. It takes a little less pressure off of my parents, right? Makes it easier for them to say yes when we want to come out there. Right? So there's different ways to kind of to look at that too. And like if your trip doesn't go perfectly, that's okay. That's the best learning experience. What would you do differently next time? Right? There has been times where we've gone camping and I had planned to like make food for the way out, just the way our days went. It didn't happen. And so like we rolled up at the campsite with a rotisserie chicken, some bag salad, and some wraps, and we made chicken wraps for dinner. And then we set up our campsite and it was great. Right. So it's kind of that reflection, right? One of the other things I tend to do a lot on like road trips or when we're traveling lots or if we've been gone for work is I always have a click and collect order kind of going on my phone that I can pick up the night we get back to make for like a smoother next day. And then I also find like if we're planning on eating out, I tend to plan out to eat out on our way home so that we can like, stop, have a break, eat something, and then get home, unload, and just kind of be done. Because I find for me, it's really overwhelming to like get home from a long day of travel and now try and figure out food with an empty fridge. So sometimes even like those two little things make the traveling easier. And then when it's a little bit easier, like marginally, then it's easier to say, yes, let's go away. Let's do this. Let's go on an adventure. Right. And even if it's just like a day trip, I find those little things can make it so much easier and make that memory stand out in your mind versus feeling stressed and overwhelmed or feeling like your nutrition isn't in line with your goals.
I love that. Yeah, making it easier on yourself rather than harder. I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes when we entertain that idea of making nutrition goals or just meal planning goals around a hectic routine, it sounds like it's going to be a lot more work in a sense, but there are ways that we can make it easier on ourselves. Like, yeah, planning that meal or a restaurant meal or eating out for when you really want it and need it, like after you finished all your traveling. I definitely resonate with that, not feeling like cooking after 6 8 hour drive for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, because when you're heading out, it's easy to kind of throw whatever's left over in your fridge to eat up.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's a little bit easier to do that. and then
Mhm.
yeah, make your future self happy versus like eating out when you leave while you're gone, coming back, and then you feel like you spent your whole time eating out, and maybe that doesn't necessarily align with like your health goals or your budget goals as well, because eating out's gotten so much more expensive.
Mhm.
But that's where it's like kind of understanding, okay, what makes me the most successful. So for me, it's that snack bin in the car, because that makes it easier of like, oh, all of a sudden we were planning to be home at a certain time, we'd like to stop and do a hike, well now we've got some options that we can say
Mhm.
yes to that, right?
Mhm.
I also acknowledge like a lot of it is single package stuff, and I do that with intention.
Mhm.
One, I don't have the time to make this stuff myself, so I'm not going to. But two, if it doesn't get eaten, it just goes back in the bin, right?
Right.
And like, so like I have a station kind of set up at home like this, and I have one at like in my car. And I also look for stuff that's going to be stable in the summer, like roasted beans don't melt. It's a great option. Trail mix with M&Ms doesn't really melt, but trail mix with chocolate chips or yogurt chips, it certainly does.
There's one of those things you can learn from.
Yeah. Like the RX bars, the reason I've been leaning on these is when they get warm, they're actually quite good, but like a chocolate covered protein bar is going to get really gross and like stick to the package and everything like that. Right? Or like just because we're talking about protein bars or like things to kind of keep on hand, um, like these True Bars that Costco has. I love like the key lime. It tastes so good, but because they're so high in fiber, um, I have to like legitimately think through and be like, do I have 2 hours to be uncomfortable? Because I'm gonna have like bloating, gas, distension. So like maybe not the best thing to eat in a car ride when I'm with like four other people in my vehicle. Yeah. But then I also have lots of, yeah. And that's also like I have lots of clients with GI issues and they're totally fine with these bars. And I'm like, how? How?
Too, I'm like, holy crap, have you looked at how much fiber you're getting?
Yeah,
But fair, they are tasty.
they're super tasty. You just have to like weigh it out. You're like, do I have 2 hours to lay in bed?
That's an interesting point though. Like I almost feel like that's a good tip though, is like maybe if not experimenting with trying a whole bunch of new things that you've never had before when you're going to be traveling or away from home. So if these bars you're interested in trying, like maybe buy them 2 weeks before your trip
Yeah.
and try them at home first and see how well you tolerate them. Or just changes to your like eating pattern. Like I think that Laura, you already mentioned earlier, like people have some GI issues sometimes when they're traveling. I think many people face that. So, like, sticking with as close to your regular eating pattern as possible will kind of minimize that instead of like, because people think, I'm traveling, so I have to change everything up and do everything different because it's a whole different, I'm going to be living very differently than I am at home. But they're like, if you can try to mimic the way that you eat at home as much as possible, I mean, with some flexibility in mind, and then maybe with some of that pre planning of like, hey, I'm interested in trying this new food. How's that going to go for me? Or even if you just like don't eat beans very often, and like beans are very convenient food, but they also, if you don't eat them, producing them for the first time might not be a great idea on a camping trip or on a long car ride or something. So that's just another thing to kind of keep in mind, is maybe sticking to some things you are familiar with when you're traveling or away from home, or else just testing it out in advance.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Lisa. And I mean, that's kind of the nice thing about like the single serve stuff is it's a little bit like it's going to keep you to a smaller portion versus like um Costco has these like peas and fava spicy ones right now, and I absolutely love them. And like my daughter loves them. They're so good, and my daughter loves them with goldfish crackers. But like in a car, this could be dangerous having like an open bag.
Yeah, it's like chips. You can go forever, but with something like that where you're eating a whole bag of fava beans, can add up.
Spicy and high fiber. Scary.
Story just reminded me. I remember when my husband and I were like newly into dating. He went on a road trip with his friends from Edmonton to Ottawa, and it was like 3 days of driving to get there. And we went and met for lunch at a Mexican restaurant before he left, and then he got food poisoning. So worked. Yeah. So again, maybe that's what I don't. Maybe that was the catalyst for me being like, we eat when we're on our way home. I don't know.
Aw, what a nice story though.
I always like to end it. I wasn't in the car. It was fine. He was with some friends, but man, I felt bad for him.
No fun.
Aw.
No.
Oh, well, yeah, those are all good tips. Yeah, absolutely underrated, sort of mentioning there that if you are trying anything new, always good to try it beforehand. I think if I'm kind of drawing from the sports nutrition podcast that Brandon and Tassa did, but if you're implementing anything for like a big run or a marathon or something like that, try it out a couple runs beforehand. I
Hmm.
feel like the same applies if you're traveling. Think of it as exercise or an event for your lifestyle, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
all really good stuff there. Thanks, guys. Um, I'm looking too at some of the questions that we were thinking of asking today, and I thought there was a really good one to mention, especially if we don't have a fridge or a kitchen to prep things. Is there a difference, Kelsey? I feel like you can definitely take this one nutritionally between shelf-stable foods or fresh foods or like frozen and canned vegetables versus our fresh options, because that's a common question.
Yeah. I feel like Lisa might be better at this one, but from my understanding, yeah, because she knows the food preparation. Like generally, the nutritional value will be similar, but there just might be higher ingredients to help with the shelf stability, right? So you might have a little bit more salt in it, but like in terms of like fresh, frozen, canned for vegetables, sometimes frozen might be a little bit higher in the nutrients because it's picked at like optimum ripeness, which is really nice. Same thing with canned too, like it's picked and then canned right away, but again, it might be a little bit higher in sodium. So you just have to be mindful about that. But a lot of the canned vegetables you can also rinse off too. So that does reduce a little bit more of the sodium. Um, but yeah, like, and then, like I said, you can also do things like the squeeze pouches with the videos and stuff like that in. Because that can make a difference too. But then it's also okay, like looking at the bigger scope of things, right? Like if this is just a 2 day road trip, if you don't eat vegetables for 2 days, you'll be okay. Because
Very
your
true.
bodies are really good at, yeah, and like your bodies are really good at craving balance. So if one meal is out of balance, you might notice that your body starts to crave certain foods. Like I think we've all had that experience where you go for vacation and but towards the end of it, you're like, man, I just could have a big salad, right? Trust
Yeah.
that your body's going to lead you in the direction it needs to go. And so sometimes you need to just take a step back and just enjoy the journey, right? But if you do have some things like, okay, maybe you have high blood pressure and you do want to be mindful of your sodium, then focus on setting your environment up to be successful so that you can still include some of those things that you enjoy, but you're not reliant on just them. So they become more of a choice and not like, I have no other options. Does that make sense? Yeah, I totally just changed that question into what I wanted to talk about. So feel free to add on there, Lisa.
Hey, I love it. Yeah, no, I think it's still all good, valuable information as well. And it's really getting back to the overall theme, I feel like, of today is picking and choosing based off of what's your priority in that moment, what you're going to find satisfying, but also contributing to your goals at the same time, right? So
Mhm.
there are strategies around it, absolutely. It's just finding what's right for you. So thank you, Kelsey. Lisa, did you have anything else to add on to that before we start wrapping it up for today?
I mean, I think Kelsey covered it pretty well. You don't have to be perfect all the time. Like if you're on the go or if you're traveling, it's really great to have these strategies to try and eat balanced whenever you can and to feel full and satisfied and energized for your day or whatever activities you're doing. So try your best, but like if you miss a vegetable at a meal or a fruit or whatever, like you're gonna be fine. And like these, yeah, some of these options are great too, like the canned vegetables. Yes, they're higher in sodium, but maybe then if you're mixing it into something, you don't add salt to your dish. Or if you rinse off the salt or rinse them off, then you get rid of a lot of that sodium already. And it kind of like mixes in with other things, and you're fine. Even like canned fruits too. Some of them aren't canned, like some of them are canned in like a sugar syrup. Others are canned more in just their natural fruit juices or just water. So you can go for those ones too. And then there's a bit of fruit for you, although lots of fruits are already like portable. Like you can get bananas and oranges and stuff, so that one's not as much of an issue. But yeah, I really do think it's important to give ourselves some grace when we're on the go or traveling, and that it's just not going to be perfect, and some meals are going to be balanced, and we can pat ourselves on the back for that, and some meals are just going to have to be somewhere in between where it's we're hobbling stuff together, and that's okay. We're
Yeah.
fed is best. So if we're getting some food in and we're energized for the day and we're having fun and not putting pressure on ourselves, that's kind of the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And I think, like, to that, I think it's important to check in with your body and honor what it's asking for, right? Because there's nothing worse of being like, oh, I'm going to make this choice because I think it's the healthiest one. And then it's not satisfying at all, right? And then
Right.
you're looking and you're like, man, I really did want that burger and fries. Again, it's all about perspective, looking at it like not just the day, but the week. What does your intake look like? And what are you wanting out of this eating experience? Right? And keep in mind, like, we eat for many different reasons. Yes, we eat to nourish our body. Yes, we eat to help support our health goals. Yes, we eat for connection. Yes, we eat for enjoyment. Yes, we eat for pleasure. Right? So again, it's taking a step back and looking at it in the bigger picture and giving yourself grace and kindness and being understanding of like, well, this is what my body's asking for. This is a great opportunity to have it. I'm going to have it and enjoy it.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm not even going to try to add on to that for final thoughts. I feel like that's perfect how you guys summarized it. So thank you very much for joining me today and for having me as your host. um, thank you. Well, I think for you listeners out there, you can find more from Kelsey and more from Lisa and a couple of our other podcasts too. So definitely go check them out there. Me and Kelsey have done a couple together, I think, but I don't think me and Lisa, you've done one with me yet, right? Well, lovely. It was a fun time. So thank you everyone for joining me until next time. And we shall be back together at some point, I'm sure.